Stuart, how do you feel about in-ear monitors?
Boy, it depends on the scenario. I feel like I say the same thing every time. But it does depend on the scenario.
Okay, so what's a scenario where you would favor in-ear monitors?
If I was using clicks and tracks and, we needed to have a pretty quiet stage, then yes, I think, and maybe playing with some musicians that know how to stay onto a click.
Yeah.
Then I would definitely favor in-ear monitors.
Okay, and so that probably applies to maybe about half the churches we work with?
Sure, yeah.
But what about the other half? Like, don't we need in-ears? Isn't that like the thing that has to be happening?
Well, so let me just demystify something. Going from Wedges on the floor,
Yep.
speakers on the floor pointing up at your face, to in-ears is not upgrading.
Yeah.
This is not an upgrade.
You're not better because you do it.
Yeah, it's just, there's two different types going on. One is you're hearing audio around you. One is you're hearing audio in your ears.
Yeah.
So if you're using tracks and click and all that kind of stuff, then you don't want to be putting click into a monitor wedge.
Right.
Or if you're trying to bring the noise volume down on stage, then having some in-ears would be fantastic. If I'm playing, let's say I'm playing bass and we've got you and I and a couple friends, my first inclination is I don't even care if I have anything.
Yeah.
I'm just going to play. A little bass amp or something,
Totally.
we got little, drums with brushes or something, you know what I'm saying? Whatever. You can make up any scenario. I would prefer just to play. I don't want to stick things in my ears. But when it comes to doing bigger things, more complex things.
I think size plays a huge issue into it because there's a big difference between playing in a small club and playing in a larger like theater or arena.
Sure.
Because the more space you have around you, the harder it can be to hear those things. But some of the best shows I've ever played for many years of my musical career, I've put horn bands together.
Sure.
So I'd have a drummer, bassist, percussionist, 2 keyboard players, guitar player, 3 horn players, and maybe a singer or 2. And we would do those shows in clubs with no monitors. Nobody had a monitor.
Yeah.
And I loved it.
I love it too. Yeah.
Some of my favorite shows.
Yeah.
Or maybe we had a wedge for the singers because that's the hardest thing, being a singer. But think about that. We had 15 musicians on stage who were all just listening to each other.
Yeah.
The keyboard player had a keyboard amp and the bass player, like I had a bass amp and guitar player had a guitar amp. So in a way we had our own little monitors.
Sure.
But we all set our volumes so that we could hear each other and we just played together. And I think a lot of churches could benefit from that.
Yeah.
Like what blows my mind is you're in the church. You are the church. Like these should be the most easy people to get along with. And a lot of these bands are like fighting each other. Oh, you're too loud. You're too this. And so it seemed when in-ears came out that it was like, oh, we can solve these problems. But to me, that's like taking a medication. It's just fixing the symptom. The problem is that like we need to work on our interpersonal skills. And so I kind of love the idea. Maybe here's a fun experiment you worship leaders should do. Make your team do a whole practice with no monitors. Maybe you functionally can't do that. Not like because you're going to run it that way on a Sunday, but just to challenge everybody to learn to listen. We used to, in jazz band, we used to call it listening across the stage. Again, no monitors. And as the bass player, I oftentimes had parts that matched the bari sax and the bass trombone player, who ironically were on the opposite side of the stage.
Yep.
I had to listen across the stage. There was no monitor. There was no microphone for me to listen to them. I had to use my ears to literally reach out across the stage and listen. And if you've never done that, or a fun experiment you can do is maybe not with your full band, but like a more acoustic version. Just put them in a room with very limited audio equipment and sing together and play together. It can be really cool. But if you can't afford to do in-ears well, it's probably not worth trying to do them.
Yeah, because there's a couple of things that happen with in-ears. First off, we do a lot of system optimizations where we go into churches, we unplug everything, fix it all, and plug it back in.
Right.
And tune the system and all that kind of stuff. And the big thing that we hear is with people that have in-ears is, oh my gosh, everything's so much clearer now. Everything seems to just, sound so much better. And all we did was we just probably reset all the gains and, made sure that everything was actually functioning properly. So there's a 2-part thing with this in-ear thing. The first one is make sure your signal path is correct on everything. Make sure that, you've got everything plugged in a logical order. Your gains are set. You don't have these weird, wild, crazy EQs and compressions and all this routing and all this nonsense that you don't need.
Yep.
And then the other side of it is, don't get nowadays you don't get headphones with iPhones, but the old Apple or something cheap.
Yeah.
Don't do that.
Don't get the cheapest earbuds.
You also don't need to spend $800 on custom molds.
And all that, yeah.
But get something
do some
sensible.
Yep.
Get something that's fairly decent. Those are the two things: signal path and some sort of decent quality in here.
But think critically about why you think you need them. Do you think you need them just because everybody else has them, or do you have a really practical reason? If you don't, a couple well-placed floor wedges could be good, or sometimes we even favor what we call a side fill package, which is just two speakers that are purposely pointed in at the musicians just to give them a little support.
Yeah, or you could do a hybrid.
Yeah.
For example, let's say you're not running tracks, but you are running click. And let's say the only person that really needs the click is the drummer.
Yeah, he could just run in-ears.
Have the drummer run in-ears. And then maybe some of the band or something, and let the singers have a wedge.
Yeah, totally.
There's always a hybrid. But I want to say, the big thing I want to say is, you're not upgrading from a wedge to in-ears.
In-ears does not automatically make you better.
Yes, it's just there's two totally different types of monitoring. And that's,
You just got to find the one that fits you best.